In this session, we are going to develop programs that illustrates control flow statements. In this, we are going to cover looping statements and branching statements. So looping statements, we have while, do while, and for. In branching statements, we do have break, continue, and return. Return will be covered as part of the method demo session, but the remaining things we will be covering in this session. So let's create a class. So you can name it as loop demo. So finish. So my first example will be I'm going to print the number starting from 1 to 10. If I wanted to print 1 to 10, what I have to do, if I don't have loops, what I have to do basically is uh, say print 1, and then I have to print the same thing. I have to repeat print print 1, print, repeat it for a number of times, then change the value. So I'm going to say 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10. So if I wanted to print it, you can 1 to 10, you can always do this program, not a problem. So it's going to say like print 1 to 10 as we see here. But if you look at it, let's say if I want to print 1 to 100, I need to repeat this system.out.println 100 times, right? So all that we are doing here is executing the same statement, this one statement which is system.out.println. We are executing this statement number of times, right? So that is where your looping constructs comes into picture. So instead of writing the statements number of times, let's say with the help of looping statements, I can repeat the statements number of times. So how do we do this? There comes your looping constructs where you can use while, do while, and for. So if I want to do this with while, what I can say, while some condition is true, I need to execute this loop, and when this condition is false, I don't want to execute this loop. Okay, so what is this condition is going to be? So till this condition is becoming false, I need to execute this loop. So what is this condition? That condition will be say count till the count is till the count is less than or equal to 10. I need to perform this loop, and I wanted to print the count. So, and we need to have the value we need to declare what is count here. So I need to say integer count equal to 1. I need to start the count with 1, and I will be printing the count. And how long I need to print this statement, how long I need to repeat this statement? Till the count value becomes 10. So the first value of count will be 1, and I'm going to check whether 1 is less than or equal to 10. So this condition is going to be true, so I'm going to print the count, which means I'm going to print 1. Now then what I need to do is I need to make count plus plus. That means I wanted to increment the value of count. If I don't do this, what is going to happen is the count value always remains in 1, and you are going to print 1 all the time actually. So if you don't do this count plus plus, let's say we remove this count plus plus, what is going to happen? Your count value will be 1. 1 less than or 10 is checked, it is true, then your count is printed. Again it is going to check 1 less than or equal to 10, again it is going to print 1. Okay, this will be keep on repeating and forming an infinite loop, because there is no situation the count will be more than 10. So your goal should be not printing an infinite loop. You should be getting out of that loop actually. Your goal is to print only 1 to 10. So you have to there should be some way this count less than or equal to 10 should become false at one point of time, so that it can get out of the while loop. So you can do that by incrementing the count value in each time you do iteration. So now what is going to happen is while 1 less than or equal to 10, it is going to print 1. After that we are changing the count value to 2. Now it is going to check 2 less than or equal to 10, and it is going to print 2. Like that it is going to print 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And when it prints count is equal to 10, it is going to print the 10 and count will become 11. When it is 11, it is going to check 11 less than or equal to 10, which is a false condition. So it is going to no more execute this block, and it is going to come outside the block and execute the remaining statement that is present after the block. So this is how the while loop performs. Let's run this program and try to see the results. So you see 1 to 10. All that I do is only 2 lines inside the loop, which is able to generate this output. So if you want to perform 1 to 100, it's again easy. Just change this 10 to 100. So it is going to print 1 to 100 here. If you just change this 10 to 100. So instead of defining this 10, 100 and all these things, we can also put that in a variable called n. So let's say n is equal to 100. Instead of defining 10 directly, I'm saying n is equal to 100. And here, instead of saying n, 10, here I'm just going to say n here. That means count less than or equal to n, 1 less than or equal to 100, 2 less than or equal to 100, 3 less than or equal to 100. So till the count value becomes 100, this statements, 2 statements are going to get executed. Okay, so n will be the maximum value that you need to print. Count will be the initial value that you want to start with, and count will get on will get incremented till it reaches n. And the moment it reaches n, and moment it becomes more than n, it is going to come out of the loop. So you see 1 to 100 is getting printed now. Okay, so if I ask you to print I don't want this numbers, basically 1 to 100, I wanted you to print odd numbers. What you will do there? So here we are printing 1, 2, so the increment is happening with 1 actually, right? So 1 and then count is becoming 2, count is becoming 3. But what I need is to print odd numbers. That means the count should be 1. After 1 it should not be 2, it should be 3. So how do we do that? Instead of incrementing the count by 1, you can always say count can be incremented by 2. So this is a shorter form of assigning count is equal to count plus 2. You can simply put count plus equal to 2. So now if you save this, you'll be able to print the odd numbers from 1 to 100. You see here 1, 3, 5, 7 is printed. There is no even numbers printed here. Suppose if I'm asking you to print even numbers, then what you will do? So again for even numbers, you have to say 0, 2, 4, 8 like that. So it is again the increment is going to be only in 2s. So but the starting number is going to be different. Instead of starting with 0, 1, you can just start it with 0. Now what will happen is it is going to start with count equal to 0, then it is getting incremented by 2, 4 like that. So simply if you, by changing this starting place, you are going to get 0, 2, 4, 6, 8 and you will print till 100. So this is a demonstration of the while actually. Let's see how we can do it for a do while. Okay, so do while syntax is very simple. All that we need to do is copy this code and put it here, put a semicolon, and then here change it to do. So here we are saying do this block until this condition is true. The moment this condition is false, it is not going to perform this do. It is going to come out of this actually. So the difference between while and do is while will be checking the condition and executing the block, whereas do while will be executing the block and then checks for the condition. That's the difference here. So in this scenario, if I want to run the same program, you are going to get the same output, like starting from 0 to 100 is even numbers is going to print. Let's run this. So there is no as such difference between while and do while for this one. But let's say I wanted to start my count with 100, or not even 100. To take a simpler example, let's revert back this code to the while code, whatever we are having, just to understand how this works with a smaller value. So I'm just printing 1 to 10 now. Okay, I'm just printing 1 to 10. Yeah, we can have it as the n, count less than or equal to n. Okay, so let me run this program once again to ensure what is it getting printed. So okay, I have to make it as n is equal to 5. Okay, so what is going to happen here is it's going to print from 1 to 5. Same old program. Now, if I wanted to change this count from 1, the starting number, oh, you start with 5 instead of, or I would say start with 6. Count is equal to 6 and n is equal to 5. What is going to happen? First condition itself is going to fail. Count is 6, 6 less than or equal to 5 is false. So it is not going to execute this loop at all, and nothing will be printed in this scenario. Let's run this. So save this, and you see nothing is getting printed. Okay. Whereas why nothing is printed here is because you are first checking the condition, and only when the condition is true you are executing this block. Whereas in do while, you first execute this block and then check for the condition. So the same thing, if you do it with do while, it is going to behave differently. So earlier you are getting the same output for while and do while, but this time it is not going to be, because do while always performs the operation. So in this case, do while is going to print 6 and then it is increment to 7 and check for 7, actually 7 less than or equal to 5, which is false, and it is going to come out actually. So at least one time the do while is getting executed. Whereas in the while, you don't, if the condition is true, then only it goes inside the block. Whereas do while, it executes the block and then checks for the condition. So if the initial value itself is going to fail, then do while will execute the block at least once. But if the initial value itself is going to fail, the while will not execute the block at all. So that will be the difference between while and do while. For loop is exactly equal to while. Okay, so it is no different from while, but we combine multiple steps into one step in the for loop actually. So with the help of for loop, what I can do is, I don't need this loop. So you were having like this for a while statement, right? This is the while condition. If at all I wanted to replace this while with for, all that I need to do is change the while to for, and then in the for loop, the first condition is going to be initialization. So you can initialize this inside the for loop itself. So just bring it to for loop, bring it to here. That will be your first condition, which is going to be initializing the counter variable and then checking for the counter variable, and the third part is going to be incrementing the counter variable. So you can put this one here. Okay, so it's just a variation of the, you don't need to put a semicolon here, it's just a variation of your while loop. So you have three things: initialization, condition checks, and then incrementation or decrement, whatever it is. So this allows you, in the while loop, if you forget this count plus plus, it is going to end up in the infinite loop. So the for loop, you may not forget, because you will be giving this as part of the syntax itself. So that is going to help you. So you don't need to do initialization, you don't need to do increment inside the loop. All these two things is taken care in the for loop itself. From the execution point of view, how for loop executes is, when you come into the for loop, only one time this initialization will happen. It first initializes and it checks, and if condition is true, it executes the block. And after executing the block, it increments, it checks the condition, it executes the block. Third iteration, it's going to basically increment, it's going to perform increment, it is going to check for condition, and if it is true, execute the block. If it is false, it is going to come out. So in this case, count equal to 6, initialization is done and it is checking for the condition is false, it is going to come out of the loop. So nothing will be printed, it is just going to behave exactly like the while loop. So nothing is printed here. So if I have the count variable as 1, then it is going to run for till 1 to 5. So it's going to behave exactly like your while loop. Okay, next thing is on the break and continue. Suppose if I say I want to print from 1 to 10, while I print 1 to 10, I don't want to really, the moment it reaches 5, I don't want to do anything here. So, or I would say like, I wanted to break the loop when I hit the first number that is divisible by 7. Okay, what I can do here is if count percentage seven equal to 0. If any number is divisible by 7, I want to break the loop. Okay. So if I'm just tweaking the program a little bit, the same program, but I'm just using if count percentage equal to 7 equal to 0, then break. That means what is going to happen is it's just going to run as Java application. So it's going to print till 6 only. Even though I am asking it to print till 10, it is going to print till 6 because when the count becomes 7, it already printed 6 and it becomes 7. Count plus plus becomes 7 and 7 is less than or equal to 10, which is true. It is going to go inside. And now 7 percentage 7 equal to 0. That means when you divide 7 by 7, what is the remainder is going to be 0. So if the remainder is equal to 0, then I want to break the loop. Break means it is going to break out of the current loop, as we saw in the switch where it is coming out of the switch block. Here it is going to come out of the block that it is presented, the loop that it is presented. So it is going to come out here. Okay, so whenever it is divisible by 7, I'm breaking the loop and coming out actually. So this is one way, like we can use the break statement. And you can use, instead of break here, continue. There is one more statement called continue. So here what is it going to happen is it is going to let's see the output. It's going to basically not print 7. Apart from 7, it is going to print the other numbers. So whenever it is, what I'm trying to do here is if it is divisible by 7, continue. That means if it is divisible by 7, I'm saying that don't execute anything remaining. Just continue with the next iteration of the loop. So that's the continue part here. So it is just going to skip the execution of the current iteration and it is going to go to the next iteration. So in this case, whenever the count is equal to 7, 7 percentage 7 is going to be 0. So it is going to perform continue. That means it is not going to execute anything remaining in this loop, and that means that what is remaining in the loop is system.out.println. It is not going to execute this. That means 7 is not going to get printed. As you see here, 6 after 6 it is printing 8. So it is going to go to the next loop, which is count will be becoming 8, and 8 percentage 7 is not equal to 0. So it is going to come. It is not going to execute this continue. So it is going to print this 8 here, and then becomes 9, 10 is printed. So only the 7 is not printed here. So suppose if you want to print till 15, now what is going to happen? 7 and 14 will not be printed because 7 is also divisible by 7 and 14 is also divisible by 7. So except 7 and 14, all the other numbers are printed. Because when you hit 7 or 14, it is saying continue the execution. Skip the remaining lines of this execution and continue with the next iteration.